All right, welcome to the Navigating Consciousness series. Very excited to be here today. This is really the culmination of many years of work and desire, and I'm very happy and excited to be here, and very grateful to John, who's the producer and creator of this channel, for the opportunity and trust in me. So. This is the first in this series. We did our first episode last week, and so for those of you who are here who have seen that, again, thank you for your time and your energy and your support. What I thought we can talk about today, and I will definitely be interspersed for those of you who watched the first episode, you already know, but. Outside of doing human design, I am also what I refer to as a consciousness engineer and a psychic athlete. And so I offer like a consciousness, you could say like a consciousness-based healthcare modality of my own design, where I just bring together, all the different systems that I've done training in. Done the training in a lot of physical systems, nutrition, supplementation, herbal medicine, homeopathy, all those things. And then also the more consciousness end of things with, body talk, now human design, which is comparable. But yeah, I wanted to talk about human design because it is very foundational to what I am doing these days. And I think it's very foundational to the time, that we are in, and I was talking about this in the last episode as well, and I feel like I'll be touching on this a lot because it is very important that we are in a truly monumental moment in the lifespan of our species, and the founder of human design, or the receiver of the human design knowledge, his name was Ra Uru. His real name was Robert Krakauer, but he went by Ra even before he received all this knowledge. He always said that this was knowledge for the end times. This wasn't the beginning knowledge. This was the end knowledge. And we are coming to a close of a certain cycle, of a certain age, and we're going to be starting over. And that's going to be happening in 2027, according to this knowledge. And so I wasn't going to get into how I work so much today. There's another episode, the previous one you can watch, where I go into a tremendous amount of detail about what it is I do and how it is I work. Today I wanted to talk about primarily the difference between the 7-centered being and the 9-centered being, according to the human design system, because it is very important for us to understand what kind of world we actually live in and what is sort of expected of us and what we are capable of. According to the human design knowledge that was received by Ra in 1987, there was a mutation to the human field, to the human form, that took place along with the discovery of Uranus in 1781, and that up until 1781, humanity was comprised of 7-centered beings. So this is the 7-chakra system of India, and ancient Egypt had its own chakra system as well. They didn't call them that, but that was the same thing. And so humanity was made of seven energy centers. And the head and the third eye and the throat, the heart, or the crown rather, not the head, and as 7-centered beings, what humanity was here to experience was dominance and hierarchy and survival, and they were very well designed for that, and it would have made sense to them in a way it doesn't make sense to us. There was a movie that came out last year called The Northman. It was about Vikings and this sort of like revenge fantasy, and it was a really cool movie because it really seemed to capture the difference between humans back then and humans now. That there was a brutality, that was sort of acceptable and expected, and it didn't bother people the way that we would be bothered by that now. As nine-centered beings, we're not here to engage in the world through dominance or through hierarchy, or really to worry about survival all that much. I mean, survival is necessary, but beyond that, it's not really a focus for us. What the nine-centered being has the opportunity to do in this lifetime is to use their energy doing what they enjoy, doing what they like. And John, I don't know if the body graph is up, but if you want to throw that up, that would be cool at this point. So I have my body graph up on the background here, and that's just showing you, for anyone who hasn't already seen one, that's what a human design body graph looks like, and that is a nine-centered design.
Yeah, I'll get it up in just a second.
Okay, perfect. So now the thing is that we were born into a world that had been ruled by this. Cool, thank you. We have been, as nine-centered beings, we were born into a world that had been sort of cultivated by like the seven-centered consciousness. And it's not that it's better or worse, like they lived how they lived and we live, and we need to be able to live how we're supposed to live. It's just what's suitable. For them, using their energy on what they enjoy wouldn't have made a lot of sense, right? It wouldn't have, it'd be like, the proverbial, dog on roller skates. We love roller skates, but a dog, what's a dog going to do with it? And that's not to insult it and like anybody, because we would be just at a place in that time, in that place. I was on the phone call with a new client today, and I was explaining this to him, and I was just like, can you imagine putting on armor and getting on a horse and cutting some dude's head off, for your king, right? It's like, well, that's about as foreign as it can possibly get. And there's a reason for that. It's because we're not designed for that. And the rapid industrialization and technological advancement that we have experienced since 1781 has been because we are, in a very real way, a different kind of human, and we require different kinds of experiences. And there's a reason why that mutation took place, and especially during the time that it did take place. And I'll get to that. Maybe the next episode I'll talk about the future and the coming mutation. There's a new kind of human that's going to be coming in that will be coexisting with us. So one thing that I do have to do, even though I'm not doing like the work today or talking about the work specifically today, is I do need to keep my field clear. And something's coming in that is interfering with my connection. So I'm really, when I'm talking, I'm really in a sort of an intuitive flow. You could call it a channel. It is, in a sense. I don't really prepare. I don't really know what I'm going to be saying until I'm standing in front of the camera here. But just very quickly, there's, in the work that I do, I really do go into areas of consciousness that is not available to most people most of the time. When you have a psychedelic experience or a near-death experience or a spiritual awakening of some kind, you might, gain access to that. That there's areas of space and time that exist that we're not conscious of, but we're still interfacing with in some way, and that there's things there that are also going to be affecting us at times. And so something that I do for myself and for my family and for my clients, and actually this is kind of a nice little dovetail, like energetic hygiene, which I probably did touch on in that first episode, but just everyone needs to know when they're, like if you get a virus, or some kind of bacterial infection, there's all kinds of symptoms that we can look for. Like we know what it feels like when we're getting sick, when we're fighting something, something's trying to get into us and our body is working overtime to stop it right before it can replicate or, whatever it's going to do. And I get the same feeling when there's something trying to access me through these sort of non-physical or extra-physical, extra-sensory kind of zones. And it always happens when I'm about to get into something very powerful, right? So when I'm working on a client and we're getting to something really good, often something jumps in because it's looking to interfere with that process and to keep that client, to keep that person stuck in what they are stuck in. So there's just a little bit of work that we have to do before we can move on and continue talking about human design and the 7-centered versus the 9-centered type of consciousness. And so let me just take care of that. I'll fill you all in on details as they're coming up. So there's just this system that's come in again. I talked about this a lot in the past. Lots of sound stuff happening today, it's all good. A system is anything with multiple inputs. So it's looking to connect to me, to gather some energy from me, or it's hooked into some people who are going to be viewing this and who will then not be sort of suitable targets, for the system any longer. But it's also an opportunity to just take the system out, to move it away from this reality and move it into a place where it can't interface with humans, where it can't connect with anyone and, kind of try to redirect them in a certain way to benefit the system. And the system is just anything, right? It's, religions and nations and, military sports teams, corporations, and it's kind of the same thing. So this phone call that I had with this client today, I was talking about these systems and how they operate. And the analogy that came in was, it's a lot like, Nike, right? So Nike doesn't exist if people don't buy their shoes. And as a corporate entity, Nike employs agencies to generate desire for their product. And these systems are very much the same thing. They're very, what's the right word? Persuasive. They're very persuasive. They know exactly where our triggers are and how to hit them in just the right way. So this is actually a fairly large system. Many people connected to it. It's not anything kind of overt, too overt. So it's not like a religion, like we're not working on like the Catholic Church or anything like that. But there is something coming in that is religious. It's an old religion, and it has to do with, I'm not even going to talk about it because it's really bad. It's actually really bad, like really bad energy, quite dark. And this is something for everybody to be aware of, that there is, like, we can't just be innocent. It's very easy for a 9-centered being to be innocent, especially some designs, right? To just sort of enter into things very innocently, and it's important to know what you're getting into. And this is one of the really good things about design, is it sort of highlights what kind of feedback you're looking for, so that you know what you should say yes to and what you should say no to, which was a freedom that maybe the 7-center beings didn't really have. It was because it was more about dominance and hierarchy. It was doing what you were told, not really having your own authority. So there's this holdover energy, holdover consciousness that developed deep into the 7-centered experience. So, the 7-centered beings were already on the decline by 1781. You already had revolutions. You already had, like experiments in democracy, and the sort of dominance hierarchy really kind of broadening out, the appearance of like parliaments and governments that were ruling separate from like the crown, and then the crown and everything that it stood for began to degrade quite rapidly. And by the end of World War I, there was almost no more empires, right? And now, there's the American Empire, but that's not it's a different thing, because its power system is so distributed, and freedom, being one of the tenets, even though it's not perfect, certainly. But anyway, so there's this old system that's coming in, this old religion. I'm not going to talk about its name, because it is, like I said, very, very dark, and its practices were very dark, had a lot to do with sacrifice, and the sort of purposeful harming of people for like ritual. So, but like I said, this is something that got birthed from the seven-centered model, and it was birthed from that model when it was kind of at its peak, 6,000 years ago, 7,000 years ago. Golden Age. Very different time, a very, very different time. Very different type of people. People who could get carried away by like visions and ceremony. So anyway, it doesn't really work for us, but it's still around, and it can still pull. It can still be very persuasive at times. And yeah, it's drawing energy from still like a fair number of people, like 100 million people. So we're just going to remove this system that's come into this broadcast, that's trying to interfere with me and interfering with all of you and 100 million other people who are out there. All right, so we're just going to clear that out. And we're going to move this system. So whenever I'm working on something and I'm clearing a system or an entity or a person, I move them somewhere. I move them somewhere where they can't exist, right? I'm not going to just kind of let them loose to reconnect in a different way. This system I'm bringing into the earth, which is actually pretty perfect because it's a real like earth-based religion, very animalistic, very carnal, very much about like the body, the flesh. Yeah. And this system, it's like hidden. It's in the same way that, and this was actually coming up in a session that I was doing the other day, just that. Like the Roman Empire, when they would take over a territory, they would incorporate the traditions of those people with their own gods. We celebrate Christmas. Santa Claus was created by Coca-Cola. Excuse me. And need some water. So yeah, Santa Claus.
We got some people joining, so you can ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah, just throw that out there.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. John was just telling me that we actually have a fair amount of people watching. So I just wanted to take this time to let you all know that there is. I am ready to receive messages. If you have any questions, if you want to go over anything that I'm talking about, or if you just want my input on something, please feel free to type that in. And I'm really hoping that we get some people participating with me tonight because, that would just be very exciting for me, very satisfying. So anyway, this thing has been hidden through the ages. It's kind of been modernized and incorporated into a lot of kind of spiritual practices, and so we're just going to get rid of it, move it into the earth. Okay. All right. John, is my human design still up?
I can have it up in a second.
Yeah, sure. I'll actually bring it up on my phone as well.
Yes, it's back up.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So the website, for those of you who are watching, who are interested to follow along with your own body graph, humanarchetypes.com is the website that I am currently using, that the body graph is from. And it's glitching on my phone now for some reason. But anyway, that's a good site. It's a very good website. It gives you a lot of information. there is a like a membership fee, but it's one that I would recommend because it also gets into some of the deeper context of human design, tone and color and all these things. Okay, so seven-centered design for the world that the nine-centered beings were born into. So, you could be born before the discovery of Uranus in 1781 and be a seven-centered being, and then you would be born after that discovery in the same year and be a nine-centered being. So there were seven-centered beings for quite a while on the planet coexisting with nine-centered beings, and they were still in charge. And so the institutions and the law, everything that sort of developed in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, that we're still kind of playing out today, that was all built by seven-centered consciousness. It wasn't really designed with a different sort of human in mind, and so they're very hierarchical, right? And there's like dominance, right? So it's all about competition. The medical system that we have isn't the best medical system that we can have. It's the one that was the most competitive, and it outcompeted, it crushed homeopathy and chiropractic and introduced this concept of like quackery, right? So, and this idea that, before Western medicine, there was, nothing, right? It was just like people dropping dead of, infections and that there was no like medical knowledge, and people were living in this kind of weird like dark age and using leeches and all that. And yeah, I mean, some of that's true for sure, but that, talking about systems being like persuasive and coercive, that was how that system, the medical system that we kind of live under these days, is that's how they suppressed or outcompeted the other options. What's going to be happening as we move toward 2027 is that there will be more and more opportunity for the nine-centered beings to really come into their own, because we're in this transition, right, where all the seven-centered beings are long gone. The new form, like the new format, hasn't come in yet. And when the new format comes in, it's going to take the attention of what you can call the background energy. So, humanity has been the focus on this planet since we developed. Estimates vary, but 250,000 years or so. For as long as humanity has been the dominant life form on this planet, it's been in that place of dominance because the background energy favored that particular form, because we could do things that were needed. Not we, but the people who existed in that seven-centered world. What they did was necessary. The way they went about it might not have been the best way, because they were traumatized and they were all descendants of like survivors, and people went through hard times. So the systems that they developed certainly aren't perfect, and carry some of the energy or the frequency of those traumas. But what I wanted to talk about is, I guess, how do we go about doing it, and how can we use human design, and how can we use energy hygiene, and why are these things sort of necessary right now? Human design offers a map. It's not the territory, but it's a good map, And the thing that is going to help us the most, as the institutions that have been developed over the past 400 years cease to have the authority. They're still going to be around. There's still going to be hospitals. There's still going to be governments. There's still going to be banks. But it's going to be different. And we're going to be different. There's not going to be the pressure that our ancestors felt to go along with, to go along with like the dominance hierarchy. We're going to be freer as a people. And the first thing that we need to understand is about our type and how our type operates. So the nine-centered beings, 4 types: generator, projector, reflector, and manifestor. each auric type is different. It operates differently. Generator aura is open and inviting. And again, if anyone has any questions, wants me to talk more about, if you already know what your type is, and you want me to talk more about something specific about that type and how it operates, please do just send us a message here. So, generator type, very open, very warm, very inviting. The projector type is penetrative. So a projector aura attracts, opportunity, attracts other energies. People want to work with you. Generators are here to build. We're here to work. We're here to cooperate. Projectors are here to guide. So they go in, right? Whatever they interface with, they go into and they extract information from. Manifestors repel. They're not here to be influenced by anyone. They're just here to be the influence. They're here to make an impact. And reflectors are, well, they're very rare, and they are completely open. They have no definition. As you can see on my body graph, there's areas that are white and there's areas that are colored in. A reflector body graph is all white. There's no definition. And so what that means is that they are really kind of carrying out the program, the background energy. They're going to be responding to what gates are being activated by what planets. They're going to be responding to the conditioning of the people around them, very strongly. And but like I said, very rare. Only 1% of the population are reflectors. Once you understand what your type is, what your aura is, how you operate, as a projector or generator or manifestor, you want to know about strategy, because all these different auric types have different strategies. So the generator aura, with its openness, is here to wait in order to respond. So when something comes into the generator field, it's up to the generator to decide, do I want to say yes or do I want to say no? Do I want to participate in this or do I not? Do me and this person have enough in common that we can do something together, right? And that's going to be really key, because the next period that we're going into post 2027, the past 400 years has all been about, tribe, being a part of something, right? The part seeking the whole, right? That's been the sort of defining characteristics of the past 400 years. Starting in 2027, according to this knowledge, we're going to be moving into a new time that's going to be defined by individuality. It's not going to be about your family or your bloodline or, do you like the same sports team or eat the same food? It's going to be, can you and I come to terms? Like, do we have enough complementary energy that we can work together? And so, yeah, people have been talking about the sort of fragmentation, the dissolving of the family, people not talking to their family members because they like, Trump or Biden or, whoever. Yeah, all that's exactly in line with what Ra was talking about, starting back in the mid-90s. He was talking about this time, he was talking about how there's going to be limited fertility, because we don't need as many people, or the program doesn't need as many people. It was very necessary for there to be this many people and for this amount of human variation to also have the capability of traveling great distance and creating new genetic combinations that would then allow for this new format to come forward. And Ra called this new form the rave, and he talked about what, how they'd be different. And much like the nine-centered beings were less hardy, you look at the seven-centered beings and the life that they lived and their physicality, what they were capable of doing and what they were capable of going through, and we're much more fragile, And the seven-centered being was more fragile than the five-centered being, right? The five-centered beings were proto-hominids, Neanderthal. I guess that is a hominid, but the more animalistic format of humans. And the five-centered humans or hominids were like very robust and very strong, and they had extreme bone density, and their tendons and ligaments were really thick. Like they were incredibly strong, incredibly tough, and they would hunt by basically jumping on top of an animal and spearing it, with like a wooden tip spear that had been maybe hardened by fire. And so when they dig up these bodies, these like Neanderthal or even Neanderthal forms, you see injuries that look like they got sustained, like the same injuries you see on like rodeo cowboys, guys who are getting bucked off of bulls. So they relied on their strength and their toughness in order to hunt, in order to be successful. The seven-centered beings, the difference there, actually, it's kind of interesting between the 5 and the 7, is the seven-centered beings were the first humans to have an activated ajna center, third eye. So they were capable of introspection, capable of spotting patterns. It no longer was necessary for them to be so strong and robust and tough, because they could consider. They could consider themselves and their own mortality, and maybe it's not such a good idea for me to throw my body in front of this, 2,000-pound animal, and maybe there's like a better way, right? Maybe if we work together, we can get them running in a certain direction and spring a trap, push them off a cliff, like that kind of stuff. So the seven-centered beings, with the awareness, with the ajna center lit up and giving them introspection, it also gave them the opportunity to develop religion and to develop a sense of connection, with a higher truth, for good or not. It's not to say that they were right, but that was then available to them. Our nine-centered form is less robust than the seven-centered form, much like the seven-centered form was less robust than the five-centered form. The awareness center that we have is the solar plexus. It's not an awareness center yet. It's going to be becoming one in 2027. But that's really where the biggest difference is. It's that solar plexus center, which I have defined. So if you look at the bottom row, there's three centers that I have all colored in. It's the spleen, the sacral, and the solar plexus. So the solar plexus is the emotional center, and when you have it defined, you are then defined as an emotional being. So you are going to be, if you have a defined emotional center, you're going to need to take your time with things. You're going to need to wait for that emotional clarity. That's not something that our seven-centered ancestors really had to contend with. They did what they were told. There was no reason for them to have something that would make them hesitate or make them wait, What's happening in that center right now, there's deep mutation happening, particularly in the 55th gate and the 49th gate. So if you look at the solar plexus, there's 3 gates that go along that bottom line. The top 2, the 49 and the 55, are undergoing mutative stress. And it's that mutation that is going to be culminating in 2027, according to this knowledge, with the development of a new form, a new type of human. And they're going to appear to us to look kind of autistic. They're not going to be concerned with what we are concerned with, because we're still ajna dominant. We have the emotional center, but it hasn't become an awareness center yet. It's a motor. It moves us along, and it's an authoritative center. So it can help us make decisions, right, if we wait for that clarity. But we don't really know what's going on there, right? We feel it. We feel sad, we feel angry, we feel fear, we feel anxiety, whatever. We can get worked up or we can get depressed, but we don't view the world through that. It sort of colors it, right? We view the world through our mind. These beings are going to view the world through their solar plexus. That doesn't mean they're going to be emotional, far from it. It means that it's not going to be that actually for them. It's going to be like an awareness center. They're going to view the world through it the way we view the world through our third eye, through our mind, which is impossible to comprehend. I don't know what that would be like, just like they won't know what it's like for us to view the world through our third eye, through our binocular vision. So there's a lot that's going to be changing, and these new forms, they're going to be the dominant species, and the background energy is going to favor them, which means that it won't care what we're going to do, which is a blessing and a curse, because we're not going to be under the same pressure. We're not going to be under the same pressure to, conform, to follow tradition, like all those things will still be there, but they won't have like the power. They already don't, the experience of being shamed for choosing to live differently, like that doesn't exist anymore. So it's already kind of over. So when we take away shame and we take away guilt and we take away all that pressure, which has been sort of a defining fuel, say, for our decisions and what we do, and like what I was saying, all these corporations and systems and everything, they're very coercive. All that pressure, like they won't be able to really do that anymore. And again, that's already kind of falling apart. It's going to give us this opportunity, right, to kind of come together in a different way, to generate systems that work for us rather than are sort of imposed on us. And that's the promise anyway. And the way that we navigate through that is through knowing our type and knowing our strategy and knowing authority. So as an emotional generator, I move into a space and I wait to respond. And my response is going to be over time because I'm an emotional generator. So I'm going to have to wait until I'm no longer feeling something strong, right? Until I'm no longer feeling excitement or fear or anxiety. And once I'm through that emotional wave, then I can kind of make my own decision. There's different strategies for the different auras, right? For the different types, and there's different authorities. So there's the emotional authority, there's the sacral authority, there's splenic authority. It's very important for you to for anyone who's interested in this and using this knowledge to help them navigate through this time, just to get those basics, just to understand type, strategy, authority. And once you know what those things are, you could start experimenting with them. The rest of the body graph, it's very interesting, and it has a lot of cool information in it. And you can listen, Ra, he was basically followed around with a recorder for 20 years, and there's a ton of lectures, a ton of output that this guy put out. So you can spend time with that for sure, but the best place to start is strategy, authority, and type. We'll type first. So I can talk a little bit about different combinations and how they might play out. I want to take a minute actually to talk about projectors, because projectors are very important. You guys are the newest form. With the development of the nine-centered format, there became these projectors. In the seven-centered world, there were generators and manifestors and reflectors. The nine-centered beings, we acquired a fourth format, and that's that projector format. It's the projectors that are here to guide. So once all the pressure of the systems that have been in place, and have been basically telling us how to live, and they're not wrong. It's just old. It needs to retire. It is going away. There's other things happening too. The planet's going through something, and there's also this when you look at the Kali Yuga, like the ages as they're laid out in the Vedic system, we're like kind of halfway through the Kali Yuga. So each age has a descending portion and a ascending portion. And so we're in the ascending portion of the Kali Yuga, which means that we just went through the darkest most dense period that humanity can go through. So, from any number of different systems, from any number of different perspectives, we're moving. We're not doing the same old thing. There's something very different coming forward. And again, anyone who has any questions about that, if they want me to address any part of that, please feel free to drop me a message there. So, yeah, something's come in again. So I need to clear the field. Just a moment. I won't go into too much detail here. Yeah, it's just another system. I'll just move it out of the way. Okay, so yeah, projectors. Projectors are here to guide. So once these structures, once their authority is completely hollowed out, it will be the projectors who will be able to recognize in the other what the other is here for. But not any projector can do that to any generator, for example. And there is something very intimate about the connection between generator and projector, because the projector needs the generator. So when you look at my body graph, there's that center square, that's the sacral center, and that's what defines being a generator. Projectors have an open sacral center. They are not defined there. And what that means is that they don't have that awareness of self that a generator has, because they don't have that sacral center. It's not important. It's not as important. They're here to know about the other because they're here to guide. And they also, when you don't have a defined sacral center, that design is referred to as it's a non-energy being, projectors and manifestors and reflectors all need generator energy, right? It's like they're not here to do per se, right? They're here to, projectors are here to guide, manifestors are here to inform and to have impact. But the manifestor impacts the generator so that the generator then goes and builds. The manifestor's like, here's my plan, go do. And if the generator wants to be a part of that plan, then they say yes to it, right? Or if they don't, then they would say no. And that's how that sort of energetic interface takes place. The projector, it's a bit different because, again, the projectors are here to guide. It's a one-on-one. Projectors work best with one-on-one. Like it's either one-on-one or it's a group. But because of how the projector aura operates, if a projector is with two other people, then both people are going to be sort of vying for the attention of that person's field, and the projector can only insert themselves into one. So the person who's not getting the projector energy, or the person who had the projector energy removed in favor of the other person's field, whoever doesn't get it is going to potentially be angry. So projectors can have the experience of people being angry with them. Also, projectors, because you're here to guide, you're only here to guide certain people. You're only here to guide the people who you are here to guide, right? The people who you are complementary with, the people that you can work with, right? Might not be your family, might not. Oh, thank you, Talene. Thank you for being here. Talk about manifestors. Okay, yes, I will talk about manifestors for sure. Okay, so just finishing up with projectors. Yeah, and again, so projectors, because they're the newest, they're also kind of like children, right? They don't. There's a potential, not immaturity, but yeah, like innocence, and a hopefulness that can get them in trouble. And also because they are looking for connection, and they're doing it kind of innocently because they don't really know themselves. They can connect with people who are really not good for them, And so, projectors need to be very clear about who they're projecting into. And there again, you get strategy and you get authority, right? So in order for a projector to know that they're connected with the right person, they need to wait, right? Wait until they're approached correctly. Wait for the invitation is the keynote. And if they wait and the person approaches, right? And how to approach a projector is to recognize them, to be like, hey, you're very knowledgeable about this or that. I would really like some, your insight on it. I'm in this situation. You seem like a really composed person. Can you help me out? That kind of thing. The projector needs to be invited and they need to be recognized in order for it to be correct. And once they have been approached correctly, if their authority says yes, then they can give their guidance to that person. But if a projector goes in and starts giving their guidance to a person who hasn't approached them correctly, again, that person's probably going to be kind of angry, kind of upset, because it's a boundary violation, in a certain way. So yeah, projectors get really good at something. That's the sort of main takeaway. As a projector, you want to be someone who is recognized as an expert. That you have expertise in a certain field. That you're very good at something, and then that brings people to you who want to approach you correctly because they want to get access to that expertise, and you can personalize that for them. And you can really mold and change people's lives. The manifestor, manifestors are rare. There's only 9% of them on the planet. 66% generator, 20% projector, 9% manifestor. So the first thing I've had the good fortune to work with a number of manifestors recently. So I've gotten to know them pretty well. And the first thing to know about a manifestor is that chances are, if you are a manifestor, that you probably felt pretty alone, especially in childhood. That it was maybe a bit hard to connect, or it was hard for people to connect with you, 3-5 manifestor. Okay, so. So I'll talk in general about that manifestor aura, and then I'll get into some specifics. So, and actually this is good because I really wanted to talk about this. Human design, it's meant for the children, right? It's like for those of us who have lived our lives a certain way. We're creatures of habit. Some of us are capable of changing quite dramatically. I've gone through tremendous changes in my life, but I know not everyone's built like me, and quite honestly, I wouldn't recommend it. It's a hard road, to be like uprooted so frequently. So having a manifestor child, and being able to raise a manifestor child correctly, being able to raise any child correctly, knowing that they're a generator, knowing that they're a projector, knowing that they're emotional. Talene, do you know what your authority is? I see you're a 3-5 manifestor, but if you can let me know what your authority is, I can talk to that too. So raising children correctly and knowing that knowing when what they are doing is correct for them, and not trying to steer them away from what they are. And that's especially true for the non-energy beings, for manifestors and projectors. You guys would have been treated like generators. Like you got to go work, you got to try hard. Projectors especially, they don't really have a good awareness of when they've been pushed too far, when they've given too much. So they're almost like super slaves. They'll outwork anyone, but they're breaking themselves down because they don't actually have the energy for that kind of work. Generators are often conditioned to be manifestors. Go out and do it. Hey, you want to make movies? Go pick up a camera and start filming. I mean, great. Like that's a good invitation for a projector maybe, or it's very reasonable for a manifestor to go about things that way. But a generator is not going to succeed like that. And so what do you have? You have a lot of very frustrated, disgruntled, emotional sacral authority. So he must be emotional authority. You have a lot of very frustrated people who aren't able to find satisfaction in their line of work. They're creatives and they're trying to break into an industry that won't let them break in because they're not designed to break in. They're designed to be approached, to be recognized, right? To be asked, like, hey, do you want to, generators need to be asked. Generators need to be asked in the same way that projectors need to be invited. It's just different. A generator doesn't need recognition, right? It's not like, oh, I see you're really good at this, come join me. I see you really like this, do you want to do this? That's more projector stuff, right? A generator is just there. Something comes, we say yes, we say no. It's good, like it's cool, once you start playing that way. Solar plexus, yes. Okay, so manifestors. The manifestor child, because they have a aura that repels, it's hard for the mother to connect with them, and also because most parents don't know, right? They don't know about human design, right? It's only been around for 40 years, 30, 35 years, And so, yeah, the way that a parent approaches a manifestor child, it's like they're a generator. It's like they're just open and like, oh yeah, mama's coming. Here's a hug. Manifestors won't go for that. Manifestor child won't go for that, and the mother will feel that, and will sort of leave them, not have as much contact, not have as much touch, because it doesn't feel like they're into it, That might not be everyone's experience, of course, but that is a lot of manifestors' experience, especially manifestor boys. Because a manifestor's aura can be very intense and they can get very angry, especially if they're, emotional, right? So emotional manifestor can get very angry. And that might also, again, kind of scare the parent off somewhat or scare the prospective partner away. But it's also like manifestors don't necessarily need that anyway. Yeah, it's not what they're here for. They're here to have an impact, and they're here to inform, and they're here to get generators to start like working on something, to bring people together. Yeah, Lone Rangers, absolutely. I don't really know too much about reflectors. I know one in person. She's pretty cool. I've only met one in person. There's not much to really say about it. I mean, it's I've talked with one on the phone, and I met one in person. So it's very limited. It's a hard thing to understand what it is to be that open, but they're lovely. Very lovely people, but they don't have authority. They're really just here to, play their part, and to watch, to observe. Okay. So, let's see. I think that about covers all the different strategies and different types and all that. Yeah, having an emotional authority as a manifestor, because you can still do whatever you want, right? That's the really cool thing about being a manifestor, is that whatever you put your mind to, you will get, but you just want to make sure that you are putting your mind to something you actually want, and being very clear, about where is this coming from? Is something pushing you toward it? Or is something trying to entice you toward it, Is it authentic? And as an emotional manifestor, what you're really looking for is just, are you in the mood? Is this something that you want to do? If it's not, then don't do it. Why manifestor energy is so repelling, and the purpose? Well, the purpose is because as a manifestor, you're here to inform and you're here to impact. You're not here to be impacted. You're not here to take on other people's ideas or expectations, And so the repelling energy is very necessary. And then there's also, like the rulers of the seven-centered world, they would have been manifestors, because they would have naturally risen to the top of that dominance hierarchy. And so whether they were kings or whether they were warlords or whether they were whatever, and it's unfortunate, because a lot of history is based around the the masculine expression of being a manifestor. Being a female manifestor is going to be different. But yeah, either way, it's like you're not here to be impacted. You're not here to be changed, right? You're here to change. You're here to change people. You're here to inform people. You're here to impact people. And so having an energy field that repels other people's energy is very necessary. Because you have an open sacral center, so you can be very, very persuaded. Someone with strong sacral energy can come in and kind of completely overwhelm you. And that is something I want to talk about like the non-energy types, projectors, manifestors, reflectors. You're all going to need to take breaks. You're all living in a generator world. You're surrounded by generator energy. You're surrounded by defined sacral centers. And so it's very important to recognize when you're getting saturated, and when you need to take a step back. When you need to just kind of let yourself be clear, of all that sacral conditioning that you're going to be under whenever you're around anybody, pretty much. It's good for projectors to be around projectors. Manifestors and manifestors, it can work, but it's sort of like, what's the point? You're not going to necessarily like each other, because it's just like repelling auras. But I've seen it happen. Not marriages, but friendships for sure. Projectors can be together. The projector can marry a projector and be quite good. The thing is, they're when you're looking at that kind of pairing, you're looking at the sacral center is like about life, so like reproduction won't be super high on that list. So the projector dynamic isn't really that sexual. That charge isn't going to be there necessarily. But a projector generator pairing, can be quite passionate, quite intense, and but again, maybe too intense for the projector. Right, and so when you have a generator-projector relationship, it's just very good for both people to understand that the projector is going to need to find their own time, and even sleep in their own bed, for example, right, so that they have that whole night to sort of detoxify, right, to like release all the energy that they've been taking in, because projectors filter, they filter energy. And they're always connecting into someone or something, and like feeling into what's there. So being alone at night for projectors especially is one of the recommendations. Okay, I think unless there's any questions, I think I'll just kind of wrap it up here. How does that feel to you, John?
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah, okay, so thanks to everyone who showed up today. Thank you, Talene, for your participation. I really appreciate it, and I'd be happy to talk to you also at some point just about your own design. Okay, well, again, thank you to everyone who showed up tonight. I really appreciate you all, and wish you all the best. Thank you.